even know how that happened. Because I walked in and I thought, oh, that's an odd setup.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're officially on the picture. I see picture there.
Yeah. He's been liberated.
Good morning everybody. It's time to get started, 10 minutes late.
I was here.
Well, I know. It was beyond my control this morning.
You're all right. Thank you.
All right. Everybody find their seats so we can get going.
Even Diane's here.
I know.
Well, I don't know about
You gotta leave her alone though. She don't like that. All right. Well.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Well, I can just turn this thing off today and let y'all talk. It's okay, Glenn. Do what you want.
She will. Come on.
All right. What do we got? What do we got? Things going on, prayer requests, stuff like that.
Well, on my ride over, if I hand up on my ride over, I learned today is National Sunday School Teacher Appreciation Day. So thank our teachers.
Thank you.
Thank our teachers. Not that I don't know why I told him that.
Yeah, Sandra was telling me that. I'm like, I'm not announcing that.
It's Stephanie's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
After birthday.
And we'll have Jeff sing to you in the auditorium after a while.
Hang on, there's one more that you need. Peggy Franklin. She has cancer, but I think we need to lift her up in prayers. Can keep her covered because her numbers were higher this last time, and
Yeah.
and she's gonna go see a specialist. So she's here every Sunday.
Yep. Yeah, we know who she is. But yeah, y'all be praying for Miss Peggy. We had remember the lady that Tom's asking us about, telling us to pray for every week. Kim, keep her in your keep her in your prayers. Celia.
Dolores has been sick all week.
Oh.
All right. Pray for Miss Dolores. She's been sick. What else? Lauren?
Yeah, she's having bad contractions. She's waiting on the doctor to get back with her to see if she can take on her sister this week.
Yeah. That time's coming soon. If it ain't this week, it'll be probably next week. But yeah, y'all keep praying. Y'all keep praying for her. She just had a hard time, and she just needs to be lifted up in prayer. And
She needs other housing.
she needs new housing. She just needs a lot of help with stuff too. So, all right, what else? I was running about 10 minutes behind this morning. I go to pick up these kids, and one of them was still sleeping. And I just let it play out. I mean, Grant went in the house and was like, "Get up!" Started throwing clothes at him. So I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna be late and just let it happen." But anyhow, he got him down to the car, and we made it here, so that's good. But we're late. All right. Anything else?
I just have a question. What's that on your face?
I don't know.
That's retirement, I
You
think.
didn't take a shower?
No. I got permission to grow it out for a while from my wife. It's
There you
fine. She said it's okay.
You did it right.
Do you have that in writing?
Yeah.
I didn't get a contract though. No.
I can't see you. Is it a beard or a mustache?
Yeah, it's a
A
beard.
little bit of both.
It's a beard.
It's not pretty, Nate.
Party last night, I was looking at the pictures, all of you look so cute.
Oh yeah. I won best dress. Well, second place. Actually, Gabe was best dressed, but Jen wouldn't let him win since they were the host. So then they gave it to the second place, which was me. But anyhow. All right. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this. We thank you for the cool weather that we've had lately, Father. It's it's refreshing coming out of a hot summer to wake up to pleasant days and nice temperatures. Father, we're mindful of Dolores and Peggy. Father, help them. Help Miss Dolores feel better, and help comfort Peggy and give her some good test results. Father, we're also mindful of. We're mindful of Kim in her battles with health issues, and we're mindful of Miss Lauren and her upcoming babies being born. Father, help us to support each one of those members in those situations. Father, we thank you so much for Jesus. We know why we get out of bed in the morning, and it's to serve Him. Father, just help us to live out our lives and in a way that would make Him happy. Help us to use Him as an example of how we conduct business with the world. Father, help us to search for that home in heaven and strive to get there. Father, we thank you for everything. We love you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So everybody knows we're on Isaac. I don't know where Tom's at this morning. Anybody heard from him? By any chance? We'll have to call him after a while. I always notice him missing because I look forward to his inputs he's going to give to the Bible study class because he knows a lot of the backstory on a lot of the history on stuff. So it's always notice him not here. Isaac, we started talking about Isaac last week, and Isaac's going to be a pretty short-lived Bible study series because there's only a couple chapters that actually talk about Isaac that much. He is a big character, but it goes from Abraham and then right to Jacob and Esau pretty much. There is a little bit about Isaac, and he's a good example for us to look at and follow. But the Bible text is just not. There's not a ton of them about him in there. So here's some kind of key passages I wrote down for us, just so we can kind of keep our mind wrapped around the text in Genesis that actually talks about Isaac. The first being Genesis 19, and these are the chapters that we came from, right? We know that Isaac he's a product of promises that God made to Abraham and to Sarah. And Isaac is his own person, right? But he is a promised child. And he's living at a time where God's seen fit to move His plan forward. And Isaac, it seems like when you read the account, the boy doesn't have the most pleasant road, right? Coming up, there's this whole scenario where his father puts him on the altar. Is gonna slaughter him there. That stuff would be it'd be traumatic. We'd be talking about PTSD for that kind of stuff today. But Isaac seemed to be obedient. He seemed to follow his father's direction. He seemed to trust that things were going to work out, which is tough, and that kind of stuff's tough for us. Isaac and Rebecca's kind of marriage. That's where we're at today, and just the rest of these texts, y'all can just be mindful of them to read them and study them for the next week when you're trying to get your head wrapped around Isaac. Last week we just threw up some similarities between Isaac and Jesus. Just about the storylines. It's kind of it's unique sometimes when you put characters side by side. And you can't put anybody side by side with Jesus, right? Nobody lives up to Jesus, but there are some similarities in the story. Some people say Isaac was like a foreshadowing of the coming Christ and things like that. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but there are some very unique similarities. They're both promised sons. They both went through some miraculous births. I always say Isaac is probably the second most miraculous birth in the Bible, aside from the virgin birth of Jesus. They were both sacrificial lambs, beloved sons. They both carried their own wood for their sacrifice, and they were both obedient till death. So it's just, some characters, there's just some unique, uncanny comparisons that can be made with characters. All right. So I'm not going to do a ton of recap about where we was at last week. we don't have time to do it for one, and I think we'll just shorten the reviews till we move on to a new character. But where we're coming up to now is really things are changing a lot for Isaac. You had the young years, now he's going to go through the death of his mother, the death of his father, the uniting with his wife and all that stuff. So Genesis 23, it talks about Sarah's death. We're not going to dwell on chapter 23 text a ton, but I just wanted to bring this back up from last week. Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah, and Sarah died at Kiriath Arba in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Right? This natural reaction of a husband losing a spouse too. But they buried her in this cave. And if y'all recall the story, Abraham had to acquire this cave from the Hittites. And they were going to give it to him, right? And Abraham wouldn't take it for free. They went back and forth, and then Abraham did a money exchange with the Hittites, and they purchased this cave of Machpelah. And that's also known as the first actual Israelite-owned purchased land. And you're going to see a lot of people get buried in this same spot, including Abraham, here in the future. But it'll become a kind of a central, important spot for things. So, 24, that's kind of, we talked about 24 last week, a lot of text about the servant. Remember all the good things we said about the servant last week? That's a character to model after, because he listened, he went to God, he worshiped God, he appealed to God. Anytime anything went his way, he rejoiced, gave praise to God, did all the things that we talk about that we should be doing. So that chapter 24, Abraham's servant, he's a really strong guy. I think it's a good guy to look at and say, hey, maybe we should implement some of those things into our life. But Abraham is old now, like Sarah just died. Abraham's old. He's advanced in years, and the Lord's blessed Abraham in all things. That's how 24 started. And we had the servant. He was sent out. And what was the purpose of this servant going out? Why was he sent out? To find a wife. Yeah. What was Abraham? Abraham was worried about something to do with the wife situation. What was he worried about? Yeah, he's worried about Isaac marrying outside of the real worry is Isaac going and getting a bride from a country of people that have different religious beliefs than the God that Abraham is serving. So he really wants his son to marry within the faith. So he sends his servant out to go find a wife from his kinsman, right? Which you would get that similar kind of mindset and belief. So this is where we stopped last week. It was there's this whole chain of events that unfolded with a servant and Rebecca's family. The servant, he finds Rebecca. He inquires to God. He's asking, "Is this the right?" Basically he's asking God, "Is this the person?" She was the first person the servant seen when he went to that town. So the servant was probably thinking, "Could it be this easy?"
Yeah.
Because she just popped up.
Well, he was still praying to God.
Yeah.
He was still in prayer when he looked up and saw him.
Yeah.
So that was a quick answer to that prayer.
Yeah. This wasn't like a day journey. It would have been quite a pilgrimage for the servant. But when he got to the location, it was like God just put her right there. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
So remember in the text, the servant, he took some time in silence to consider whether this was actually God. Is this what God wanted or not? Now he went to the family and back and forth with the family. He's telling them here's who I serve. Here's what Abraham told me to do. Here's what I've seen so far. He told them all about the encounter with himself and Rebecca. And now they're basically arranging for Rebecca to leave with Isaac at this point. But there was an appeal, and I'm glad verse 57 is there. Like I said last week, they said, "Let us call the young woman and ask her," right? Because I mean, arranged marriages and stuff they are a thing in old times, but I can say that's always the best course of action. The best course of action is when both people have some buy-in into it, right? But somebody came to their senses and they said, let's ask Rebecca what she wants to do. And you start to see some of Rebecca's character come out in the account. And I want us to look for those things too when we're studying these stories, because we have the series of events like the plot charts and things of that nature, and we can learn the who, the what, the when all this stuff occurred. But I think that God gives us these characters to learn something about the character too. So we should always look for their unique traits when we're studying them. Like, why is God using these people? A lot of times you'll see words like righteous, or they were faithful, or they were praying people, or whatever. But there's usually something unique and godly about a person that you can identify when you read and study the account. Then they called Rebecca and said to her, "Will you go with us, man?" And she said, "I will go." Rebecca's not. She's been seeing all this unfold. She already knows who the servant is. She already knows who Abraham is because the servant's been talking with her. And I wouldn't be surprised if Abraham's kinsmen and stuff hadn't heard about him and talked about him and told stories about him.
Well, the servant had already given her gifts worth quite a bit of money too.
Yeah, and she already has some jewelry on and stuff at this point.
So he's already given her that, so she kind of knows, this is a well-to-do family she's going to.
Yeah. So it's probably a pretty good opportunity for her. They blessed Rebecca and said to her, "Our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him." See, these people know some stuff. They're not ignorant people by any means. Then Rebecca and her young women arose and rode on camels and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebecca and went his way. See, Rebecca seems to know she's going to be part of this. She's a player in this account that in this story that God's setting up. So she doesn't seem too resistant about going with this probably strange servant to this strange family that she hasn't seen before. Isaac and Rebecca marry. It's a real short account, honestly. Now Isaac returned from Beer Laharoy and was dwelling in the Negev. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field towards evening. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, there were camels coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things he had done. And Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So there's a couple things that, just a couple little things I want to point out in this text right here. The first one is, you kind of start seeing the mindset of Isaac, right? I don't get the feeling that Isaac's I don't get the feeling that he's a super in your face kind of person. I get the feeling he's more quiet. He thinks things through, and stuff like that. It says he went out to meditate in the field towards the evening. It doesn't even say he's talking to God. It says he goes out to meditate in the field. That's a healthy habit, to just go out and think about things, about who you are, think about life, think about how God's involved in your life. But just to take some quiet time to go out and reflect on things, that's a good habit that people have, that people can develop. And it's talking about Isaac doing that here. Isaac, there seems to be some, it doesn't say he's grieving. It says he was comforted, but I don't know how long this is after the loss of Sarah, but you can kind of see some of the importance of Sarah's life to Isaac, right? Because it says Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. I mean, she didn't just die and life go on. Like, there's some people grieving, some people mourning.
She had been dead a while. Her tent still existed.
Yeah.
Because said he went into his mother's tent. So each person, I would assume, had his own area.
Yeah.
And hers was still there because that's the place he took the woman to be his wife.
Yeah, it doesn't tell us. I mean, mourning somebody, it can go on for a week or it can go on for years. Like, it doesn't necessarily tell us. But we know there was still some of that going on because the text makes it a point to say he was comforted after his mother's death. So they meet. She takes a veil and covers herself. Why would she do that?
Custom, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, that is a customary thing. There's also some modesty in there, right? Because we do know that Sarah was a beautiful woman. So maybe she wants to hear how this interaction between the servant and Isaac is going to go before she lets him see her, right? There's a customary piece to it, for sure. But that's the account of Isaac and Rebecca, finally meeting each other right there. The text goes on. You hear a little bit more about Abraham in Genesis 25. Abraham had another wife. The text says Abraham had taken another wife whose name was Keturah. Well, we don't hardly ever speak about her, but there's another wife. So there's three lines from Abraham. There's one from Abraham and Hagar. There's one from Abraham and Sarah, and there's one from Abraham and Keturah. I have a chart for y'all here in a minute, but yeah, there's a third wife, which makes me wonder about all the I'm old and all that stuff, but
All the kids.
there's a lot of kids. Yeah, I mean,
6 other children.
there's six other children there in the text, but Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac because Isaac was the promised son. But while he was still living, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them away from his son Isaac to the land of the east. It's just interesting there would be another family that pops up in there. But remember also, things are still, the world is still there is still other objectives, right? These guys are supposed to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. That stuff, that direction's still going on.
There are some theories that he married her before Sarah died. There's a possibility that he married her before Sarah died.
I mean, possible, maybe. The text just doesn't tell us that, though. Could she have been one of his concubines and they knew each other and all that stuff before? Sure, but the text doesn't tell us. So we go kind of into Abraham's death in 25. Abraham lived 175 years. Then he breathed his last breath and died at a good old age. An old man full of years, and he was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, in the field that Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who then lived near Beer Lahai. So Abraham, 175. That's quite a life after. How old was he when he had Isaac? Does anybody recall? 100, right? He's 100 years old. So he still has 75 more years of life. That's something else, you know. 175. That, you know, that lifespan's still coming down. Like it's still dwindling down from, you know, the times when people lived 900, 400, and all that stuff. Did you have something else? Okay.
John, what I find interesting in that is if we go back a few weeks when we were first talking about Abraham and you know how I always felt Ishmael got slighted.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's any bad blood between Isaac and Ishmael because you know it said both of them buried him.
Yeah. It is interesting. They are back together, and they both showed up to Abraham's burial, which is it doesn't seem like maybe the parents had a lot of bad blood, but maybe the two actually got along when they were older. This is kind of I know that sometimes when you put a lot of names and stuff on the board, it's hard to see, but I just put this up here to kind of show you the lines of Abraham. You know, the first one, Hagar, Abraham and Hagar. Y'all remember the account, right? That was the Abraham and Sarah trying to figure out things. There's a lot of kids right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 12 kids that came from that line right there. And they would go on to become the Ishmaelites, which you'll read about and hear about. And then we know this line, right? That this is going to become the 12 tribes of Israel here in the near future. And then you have this whole other line right here. Some of these names will be familiar. Like when you go on, like you'll see some of these names pop up in the future, and like you know they might be a city or a group of people. Midian, Ishbak, Esper. But anyhow, that's Abraham's family tree right there.
I think it's time to break into the song of Father Abraham.
Yeah.
You go ahead and lead that for us.
It is never the time to start a break.
I know.
I'll be singing it all day.
I agree with Mark on this. Like, we're not going to break into Father Abraham.
Well, that's one of the things. It's an all kind of
He
like.
did have many sons.
He had a lot of kids. He had a lot of kids. I don't know how these guys do it. So I put my old chart back up here for y'all to see, because I just want you to once again I just want y'all to refresh your memory on like how long these people were living. So we went from a time when people were living almost a century. I mean, well, not a century, a millennium. They were almost living a millennium. They were living 900. You know, these lifespans are 930, 912, 905, and then they significantly come down later. And I always want to point out this one right here, Shem, right? Because it feels real distant from Noah's Ark time to Abraham. But Shem is still alive. Shem is alive after Abraham dies. It's just a unique thing to look at when you put the numbers on the screen. So like these guys, you know, if they truly have like, you know, questions and they truly have like you know, thoughts about like what did God do back in the day? What's the history of all this stuff? They could track Shem down and ask him. They could. Shem was alive. Look, he could have talked to. So if you follow the line down, like Shem's still alive in Isaac's life, and he could have seen Jacob when Jacob was about 13. I think is when Shem would have finally died. Now this family didn't live together, but I just pointed out like there is a guy alive on the earth that was there. He was on the ark during the flood. He was alive during the Tower of Babel account. There's a lot of like firsthand knowledge on the earth of like who God is and the things that He's done. So there still would be, you know, there's some people that don't believe on the earth, but there would still be a lot of people, probably especially surrounding this family, that fully understands who God is and what He's capable of, and how He takes care of His people and what He does when people don't follow Him. Anyhow, I just want to point that out. That's something you don't discover till you start looking at the dates and figuring out the birth dates and the math behind it. But he was alive during all that stuff.
What question for you, Brother John?
Yeah.
Wasn't Joseph alive with Shem and or because they're showing them in a later date?
Well, it looks like, I mean, if you're looking at the dates there, it says Shem 2158. Joseph was born 2199. I mean, there would have been a gap there. Like, so Joseph would not. Shem would have died before Joseph. He would have, he would have overlapped Jacob just by a little bit, but not Joseph. So Genesis 25, you see some things pop up here when you continue the storyline. Talks about the generations of Isaac, Abraham's sons. Abraham fathered Isaac. Isaac was 40 when he took Rebekah, so they're 40 years old when he got married. The daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean, sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. Okay, we have another barren woman, right? Seems to be a kind of a recurring thing. But you see something else about Isaac's personality come out, or his character here. He does have a problem, right? Isaac is this promised son. Like, he knows that his dad would have taught him all this stuff that God has promised. And Isaac knows that he's the one. And now he's married to a barren woman. So how in the world are all these promises going to come to be? How are Abraham's heirs going to be, like the sand of the seashore or the stars of the sky? Because Isaac is married to a barren woman. Like, what you would be thinking, this is it. This is the end of the line. But what Isaac doesn't he doesn't come up with his own plan. He prays to God.
Maybe he learned from his dad.
Yeah.
So you think he learns from his dad, but then you see some other stuff that comes up that's like, okay, maybe he didn't learn everything, right? But Isaac prays, right? He's got a problem. The problem needs a God solution, and that's what he does. He prays to the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his prayer. And Rebekah, his wife, conceived. Talking about prayer for a minute, right? Isaac he's inquiring of the Lord for his wife, right? Because she was barren and the Lord granted the prayer. But Isaac is praying to God about things that Isaac somehow, some way, he's got to know too that all these promises are going to come to be, right? God wouldn't have sent them through this big long journey and all this stuff if he was just going to call it quits on the family line here. So he is praying to God for things that he knows God can take care of, right? He is asking for things in line with God's plan, in line with, the things that he knows in his head are true about God. And he knows that this Abraham line is going to continue through him. So he's asking God about it, and God grants it. So Isaac, he seems to be a man of meditation, a man of prayer. He's got some good characteristics about him. All right, now Rebekah's pregnant now. You get to Genesis 25, verse 22. It says, the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it is thus, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. Seems like they're both doing a pretty good job of just asking God, like, what's going on? And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from in you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. You can kind of just picture Rebekah, like, they can go to the doctor, they can get ultrasounds. They didn't know what was going on inside of them during the time, right? So she's pregnant, and she's probably a little bigger than most women that are pregnant because there's two of them. I see my wife laughing back there. But I mean, when you have twins inside of you, you get really big, right? And they do kind of like, yeah, it seems like they're fighting for space. So that's probably what's going on. She's probably feeling all that, and she's saying, this ain't right. Like, something's wrong. So she's asking God. And then God says, guess what? There's two. Imagine that. It's like there's two. But there is something unique about what is said here. The Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. I don't know if that'd be good to hear as a mother, right? The one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. Why would that be a problem in this time?
Isaac, can you smell all over you?
Yeah, it seems like stuff they've kind of already went through, but like the older shall serve the younger. That's not how things. That's not how things
you
work.
ask these two, I'm the boss. Look, see, I'm the oldest, so I'm the boss.
There you go. The oldest is the boss, right? And I mean, we'll see it here real soon in Genesis what happens when the younger ones try to take control. Like, it doesn't go over well with the family. They do things like throw them in the pits and stuff like that. So you skip a lot of like growing up and stuff with these kids. But verse 24, when her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. She already would have known that because God told her. The first came out red. All his body like a hairy cloak. I don't know. Everybody says all babies are pretty. I don't know about this one. Red and covered in hair.
He probably gave her a wig and indigestion. That's probably why she thought something was going on.
So they called that one Esau, right? The red one with hair all over it. Called him Esau. Afterwards, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. That's just been an interesting picture to think about, right? A hairy red baby coming out and another one latched onto his heel. I mean,
the word Jacob means heel grabber.
Yeah, it does. It does. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them, right? So they done been, Isaac and Rebekah, 20 years together at this point. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, and Rebekah loved Jacob. Anybody see any issues there? None? No? None?
Yeah.
Well, it says Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game. Do you think Rebekah would have told Isaac about what God told her earlier? Like the older shall serve the younger and all that stuff? Think they might have had some discussions about that in their life? Probably. But anyhow, I wouldn't say it's a good idea for a parent to ever love one versus the other. It doesn't say that Isaac didn't love Jacob. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that Rebekah didn't love Esau either. You don't see that in the text. Maybe it was along the lines of one of these. Isaac and Esau. They're kind of like each other. Maybe their personalities more aligned with each other, so they gravitate towards one another. I don't know. But the motivation, right? Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game. I mean, Esau seems like the guy, he's growing up, he becomes a hunter, he's providing for his family, he's bringing stuff home. They're eating things, it's tasting good. Isaac's not having to do as much to provide because he's got him. Sounds like a kid, a father would just probably gravitate towards a little bit more. While the other one's just quiet in a tent. I mean, that just sounds like somebody a mother is going to gravitate towards more. So I think it's kind of a natural thing.
Yeah, Jacob cooks too.
Jacob does cook. But I think that's the next slide. And then we're going to have to be done after that. But anyhow, so back to to what Susan said, Jacob cooks, right? Once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted. Therefore, his name was called Edom. Jacob said, sell me your birthright now. Esau said, I'm about to die. Of what use is that birthright to me? Jacob said, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright.
So he didn't get his red stew. He got bean soup.
He got bean soup. These two brothers seem like a handful to me. Don't they? Like, both of them. Esau's attitude kind of about his birthright, right? The birthright's a big deal. Like it is a big deal. That's like when you get to the like definitions of it in the law, right? When you get that birthright, you're going to get a double portion of your father's inheritance of all the things. And also, that's supposed to be the person that becomes the leader of the family. It's supposed to be the person that becomes like the spiritual leader of the family, and all that stuff. But Esau's careless with it. He is. He is a little flippant with it. It seems like his mind's more on like the physical right now. I'm hungry, or I'm hangry, or however we want to put it, right?
Hey, how about throw a little monkey wrench in it? Okay, maybe Isaac and Rebecca talked about the whole one should serve the other.
Yeah.
You think maybe Isaac might have told Esau?
Maybe.
They could have, and he's like, it doesn't matter what's going to happen anyway.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows what they talk about in their family setting. But what about Jacob here? How about, what about Jacob's attitude here?
He's a little conniving.
It's not the best, is it? Like, you would think he would be like, oh, my brother's hungry, here, have something to eat. But no, he's like, sell me your birthright. Like, come on. Like, who even talks like that? But these two go back and forth. They seem like they would be a handful with each other. And they got an interesting history that we'll read about. But they do figure it out. They seem to figure it out amongst themselves eventually. But yeah, let's see. It's 10 till. We're gonna have to stop right here for the day at these two. But we'll pick up right here next week. We won't do much of a review until we move a little farther down the road. So y'all please keep reading about Isaac, Jacob, and Esau and be familiar with the accounts. Thank you.